Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We're an anime podcast who every 2 weeks we talk about an anime that we recently watched, and we cover about a season every time, and we discussed our episodes, our theories, the characters, and then we turn discussion over to our audience so that they can do it better and educate us on the points we missed and start really fun discussions. That's what we're all about. And this episode we watched the spin-off of Cells at Work, which we have an episode on, but this was Cells at Work Code Black, and so we will be discussing that. And to do that, I need the help of my co-host. First off, we have the escort to my liver, Jeremy.
Hey,
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Man, last weekend we got to go to the lake for like the first time in 3 or 4 years, and it was so great, but we did not wear enough sunscreen. And it wound up being a really, really hot day. So for the entire last week, I have just been dying. Finally starting to get back to normal. Yeah, but that's probably the peak of my week, was going to the lake. Other than that, maybe played some Loop Hero. I don't know if you guys have heard of Loop Hero.
No, we haven't.
You haven't heard of Loop Hero? I guess it's actually pretty popular right now. It's a roguelike where essentially the world is gone. It's just disappeared into a black nothingness, and your character that you're playing as is kind of remembering bits and pieces of the world. And so every time that you play through a life in the roguelike, you are actually assembling the world around your loop and trying to get around it as many times as possible before the main boss comes. You defeat the boss and you build up your camp outside. It's pretty cool. I find it really enjoyable.
Hold on. You played a roguelike?
I every now and then. Every now and then.
Also with us is the nursemaid to my scrotum, Jason.
Oh.
Hey, reproduction doesn't happen without. Never mind.
How you doing, Jason?
Well, I was doing all right. Actually, life got pretty busy because I started a new job. Still working for the same company, but just different, a new role. I started a new series, Loki. I'm sure many people have watched it, but I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And then I went back, and because YouTube kept feeding me clips of The Matrix, I went back and watched it. And it's funny because, it's probably my 6th or 7th time watching it. And this time I decided to start paying attention to as many small details that I can. And it's, if you pay attention to Cypher, you're like, oh, obvious bad guy is obvious. But also it just stands the test of time. It's some of the technical stuff, and especially like the actual robot city details are a bit dated, but the story itself is just so solid. I love that movie.
This masterpiece.
This makes me a little bit sad because the algorithm is winning then, because Tanya and I watched Matrix last week as well. So that's not cool.
Whoa.
Evil Matrix.
Guys, I also watched... No, I didn't.
Evil algorithm. I know, I was going to ask, Troy. You didn't happen to, did you? But that's 2 out of 3. Oh, man.
Like a glitch. They must have changed something.
I need to watch. I need to watch number 2 because I love the architect scene. Very few people like the architect scene, but I love it.
I don't remember it.
I do also love it. I also love Will Ferrell's parody of it for the MTV Movie Awards that year. That's still one of the best skits I've ever seen. So, but only because I love it so much. Like, it's one of those things where like I can laugh with it. But yeah, I do love the architect scene. and the Frenchman. You gotta love the Merovingian and everything he
yeah.
says, even though it doesn't make any sense. You're like, I don't know what you're saying, but I love the way you say it.
So you do have some skill. It's just irritated. I love it.
And my name is Troy. I tweeted about this a bit ago, depending on when you listen to this. But I'm really enjoying the Bad Batch cartoon, which is a sequel to Clone Wars, and again, unapologetic Star Wars fanboy. So take everything with my reviews of Star Wars with a grain of salt. But I'm always happy to have new Star Wars content. But the best thing about it is watching clones who were like, we go in, we follow orders, the Republic is the king of everything, to now these guys are outlaws, so they're against the Empire, and so they're having to work with smugglers and against bounty hunters, and so like they're landing in ports, and the port master's like, oh, they're like, hey, don't tell anybody we're here, and he's like, oh, okay, give me some, they're like, give you some what? Money. You want money? Like they don't understand the underworld at all, and watching them trying to adapt to that and get hooked into working for a mob boss. Oh, hey, you're eating more. You owe me for money and weapons and so yeah, thank you for doing that job, but you actually still owe me. And wait a minute, that's not fair. No, it's not. Welcome to the underworld. That's been very fun. And no, I did not watch The Matrix. I did watch 1989 Batman with Michael Keaton, and Batman kills a lot of people in that movie. I've always complained about Ben Affleck's Batman and how violent he was, and then after watching that, like, was it really only Christopher Nolan's Batman that didn't kill people? Because he like missiles. he tries so hard to blast the Joker in the middle of the street. He has the targeting computer, and it's not like the scene in Dark Knight where Batman like chooses, oh, I can't kill Joker, and he crashes the Batbike. Like Batman's all in, every missile, every gun going at the same time, and Joker's just like, oh, you're missing. 1989.
Where does he get all those wonderful toys? I love that scene.
That movie's just Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton having fun. It's so fun. You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? Just something I say to all my victims. So good. All right, let's talk about Cells at Work Code Black. But before we do, little bit of a parental advisory warning on this one. This is a more mature adult themed story than the original Cells at Work. This is in an unhealthy body. They're also dealing with what is considered taboo subject matters, and I think they do it in a very not snicker at it way for the most part. But I mean,
we'll probably snicker at it.
Yeah, and the joke I made at Jason's expense is kind of just a setup of, we're going all over the body, even the parts you don't normally talk about.
Yeah,
we will do our best to keep it PG. So we won't be explicit in phrasing anything, but just know that the subject matter here is darker themed, and that we will be doing our best to talk about it. So just if you like to listen with your kids, or if you are a kid, go listen to the other Cells at Work one. It's great. The platelets are adorable.
In that one.
Yeah, they're kind of mean in this one.
All right. Let's start with our non-spoiler reviews. Jason, this was your pick. What'd you think of it?
I really enjoyed myself. Because I have the first Cells at Work to compare it to, it's going to be tough not to do that on a consistent basis. But I found the characters more engaging. I liked that there was more consequences to the events that were happening to them. You had a lot of the same themes. White blood cell pops out of a grate somewhere and then murders a bacteria. That was always fun, but it overall made me feel terrible about the way I take care of my body. But not only was it a great learning experience, but it was actually really entertaining. Like, I was much more invested in the characters and our main red blood cell character in this story than I was in the other one. So,
all right, Jeremy, what'd you think?
I basically have the same exact thing to say. The only complaint that I might have, in just very broad detail, is I was looking for some characters, some cells that didn't make an appearance, and I was a little bit sad because I was really hoping to see them. But otherwise, yeah, it was really entertaining. I actually learned a couple of really cool things about the body that I did not know. And plus this one had a lot more like fan service,
Fan
which
service.
yeah, I enjoyed. I thought that was pretty great. So
It announces itself like this is for the older viewers in the
yeah,
room very fast with
I
some
got
outfits.
I got my wife to sit down and watch it with me, and we were just cracking up the whole time. Just at every time the white blood cells came on screen, we both just bust up because it's just almost too much. And yeah,
Right.
so I loved it. It's great.
I also found it probably more entertaining than Rachel Sells at Work. I still think it's a really fun way to bring educational material out. It's personifying the inside of the body, and that works. And then going with the darker themes, I'm kind of with Jason. There was a couple times I'm like, oh, I just need to start exercising. Really
Did
do.
I just drink another energy drink? Oh.
Oh,
I have cut back on my own caffeine intake lately, and I was glad for that. I had some disagreements, not with like what they were saying, but like you could add a little bit of context to some of this, which because I'm worried that they'll give the wrong message. I'll address it when we get to the spoiler section. But having it be more of a dramatic take on the body rather than a comedic take did make it more entertaining. The characters were more engaging. I was actually kind of going into this like, oh, here's more characters I'm never gonna care about because I know they're just cells, and it's still fun to be educational. But I was kind of not looking forward to this, and I got into the main character's story, so this had that going for it. I think over Cells at Work. All right, the opening and the ending. What did you guys think?
I loved the opening. Okay, I didn't love it, but it was really good. I enjoyed it. And then like the ending scene of the OP where he's up and awake and he's just like, oh, like I just love that face of just almost terror, like, oh, I gotta go back to work. Um, the ending was take or leave it. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't good. So.
yeah, ending for me was the same. But the intro, the music, not a big fan, but I absolutely loved how, like you were saying, Jason, the wake up, but right before the wake up, when he's running towards his friends and everybody's happy and it's a bright, clean world that they live in and everybody's there. And then this abyss opens up under his feet and he just falls, dropping his oxygen. I was like, that is such an accurate depiction of this world, like what he wishes it would be and what it really is. So yeah.
Yeah, the OP was interesting that it was like this dream of like a happy body life that he's obviously not having. I did also like that the ending ends with him going to bed and the opening ends with him waking up, which was cool. One of my issues is the show ends on a lot of like dramatic cliffhangers or dark ideas, and then this do 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 do, and I'm like,
Right?
that is
Yeah.
not the mood I'm in. I am sad. You have depressed me. Can you not
Yes.
play this music right now?
Exactly.
Especially, I don't. When we get into spoiler sections, I'll tell a story about episode 12 and the music when it played. I was almost slipped off the television, but I didn't because I'm a mature adult
You
man.
can't
That's
do this
relatable.
to me.
All right, so let's go on to our spoiler section. So this is your spoiler warning. If you have not seen if you have not seen Cells at Work Code Black, then you will be spoiled. We will be talking about the characters who are cells and what happens to them, which is their work. And there might be some spoilers for regular Cells at Work. I think there's something I'll probably mention that has to do with the ending of that show. Nothing major, and it's not like it's a huge dramatic story where if you know a story beat, it ruins the story. So we probably might be a little looser with spoilers for that anime as well, but just FYI. So, spoiler warning has been dropped. So, just for reference, a Code Black is a company that treats its employees harshly, but it's a poor work environment is what we're doing. So, whereas like a code red in a hospital or a code blue where they can't breathe. The code black is actually referring to work, not doctor terminology. And so, yeah, we start in an unhealthy body. We get a little bit of a quick opening scene of a red blood cell running away from bacteria and a white blood cell fighting them. But we start the story proper with our main character, who I have nicknamed Red. Nobody has a name in this except for AA2563 is I think is
They
his
have a
official
serial
name.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I called him Red, which is the same name I gave the red blood cell in regular cells at work. But this time, Red is a man, and he has just graduated to become a red blood cell. It's his first day on the job. What did you guys think of our main character, Red?
Very tropey anime protagonist, you know. I'm going to do the right thing all the time. I'm going to work extremely hard for the benefit of society. And we're going to do the best we can at all times, and paragon of good. I do like that bites him in the butt later on, and the people around him are trying to let him know, hey, this is a cycle of self-destruction, even if you have good intentions. And so I like his arc. I like his, that he doesn't end up a nihilist at the end, but he also upholds, hard work is good, but we can temper that. And because with that tropiness, it can get a little dull and boring because we've seen that before. But I think they did a good job with this character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that I liked the most about him was that he was kind of piecing together table scraps from everybody around him to figure out the philosophy he was going to live by, right? Like you were saying, Jason, he's got his own code of ethics of how he wants to work and that he wants to do this great job. There's really nobody there to give him instructions for the whole length of time. There's like no single mentor for him.
Right.
And any mentor that he does get kind of only sticks around for part of an episode, and so he's kind of left to pick up the pieces of, well, this guy said this and this person said that and she said this over here, and I don't know, what do I make out of all these different things combined with my own personal experience? And
all you have to do is suppress all your emotions, and then
yes,
you can put on a smile.
I love that guy. He's got like the quivering, insane eyes, but he's still got his smile on. And so seeing him in the end wind up making really good decisions and finding that equilibrium was really cool. Yeah. Also, the futility that he's faced with is just really engaging. Getting to see how he's dealing with that. It like you guys said before, it really puts the body in a completely different light when you imagine that these things are trying to do a job. These little cells inside of you are just trying to do their job and keep you together in one piece. How hard are you making it for them? And I hadn't really looked at it that way. I know that Cells at Work season 1 did not do that. It didn't take anything this seriously. But this poor guy crying and just constantly wailing, and I felt for him so bad.
Yeah, especially comparatively to the original red blood cell, who was just kind of incompetent at first, and her arc was just like literally learning how to do her actual job. This guy comes out of graduation, and they're like, "You're working now, and you need to be proficient now." They're like, "Aren't you going to teach us?" "No, you learn on the job. We don't have time. There's not enough of us anymore. You're getting to work now." And through this whole thing, he has to figure out, why do I work? And it changes throughout the story. I work because I want to be the best. I work because I want to survive. And so eventually he has to come to, the conclusion, I work because I want to, but also facing it in an environment that doesn't care. He can work extra hard and things don't get better. He can work lazily and things are the same. So that was really interesting to see. And I don't want to take the wind out of the sails of our theory, Jeremy, because I know we both have it and we want to get into it later. But I do think there's themes between the world and this main character that are definitely not in the original Cells of Work that I thought made it extra more interesting. Because as I'm watching him and then I'm thinking about what's happening to the world, and I'm like, that made him even more interesting of a main character. And then, I'm thinking about his red blood cells
because he's a person too.
When things get cut in half with a sword, they bleed, and I'm like, well, so they have red blood cells, and
exactly.
So they're like a whole nother. Is it worlds inside of worlds?
Yep.
It definitely does not reward you to think that hard about Cells of Work. Just fairness.
Yeah.
Now, I think the one thing I like that he learns is that, because a lot of times in these stories, the person that does the best combat is usually the person that's looked up to or the one that deserves all the praise. And he gets to learn that his job might not be as flashy or as instantly fulfilling, but that his job's extremely important. And everyone else basically can't do what they do without him.
So yeah, he graduates with his best friend, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But then he goes through that process of, we're learning on the job. Go start delivering now. Just go. He passes by some platelets, and we know the platelets from Cells of Work, and they're cute, they're happy, they're funny, and they're like, take a hike, kid.
Yeah.
they're modern children.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. He gets that awesome intro video that you always get after you finish, like,
your orientation video. Yep.
Yes, thank you. Yes, he gets this orientation video where everybody's happy and the chief of the stomach's like, make sure you tell me your name when you come by, because it's always better to know the names of the people you're going to be working with. And you got the cute platelets that are super friendly, and everybody else is doing the wave and smile thing. It's not like that.
So yeah, he even stops by at the stomach and introduces himself, and the guy's like, I don't care, get back to work. And someone's like, that video is really old. You should not listen to it.
Yeah.
Things have gone downhill from there. And one thing they really capture well in the background design is that the same exact hallways we saw in Cells of Work are now covered in plaque. And scuzz and garbage, and they're clearly obviously very much not the same health level of a body. And he even gets yelled at by this old lady cell. I think she's a skin cell or one of the wall cells. She lives in an apartment and yells at him, and the senpai comes up and helps him out, and the senpai's like, hey, suppress your emotions and you'll get through the day. Just don't feel. And they go traveling together, and he's helping them. They see some LDL agents who are sticking cholesterol into
I love
the
that.
floors, and
it's literally guys in like suits with a wheelbarrow dumping stuff and trying to bury it.
And then they take off.
They go running away.
And then he tries to take a break, and one of the older red blood cells starts yelling at him about it. So they get back to delivering, and then they run into carbon monoxide, which hits some of the red blood cells and actually turns them into like these carbon hemoglobin zombie things.
And one of these is like the purple-haired senpai that was there before, saying
he was like the head of the red blood cells, right?
Work. Yeah. So he dies right away.
Yep. And then some bacteria show up at the same time. So we meet our secondary protagonist, white blood cell. This time a switch from the original white blood cell from the other anime. It's now a female with a very provocative design.
Yes.
But the same hair covering one eye design. It was just funny.
Yep.
And I named her White. Seemed appropriate. What do you guys think of White?
Design aside, I actually liked what she brought to the table as far as helping the main character grow an arc. I don't think she had much of an arc, because again, she's a paragon of good, trying to do the best job that she can. But she definitely helps him, have some great realizations, and I also like the combat, the way it was portrayed in this, a little better than the other one.
I thought it was really interesting that the ladies, because all of the white blood cells in this body are female, which I thought was really, really cool. Now,
Was
if I
shirts
remember
too small?
Oh yeah, they all had two small shirts, exactly. They all unzipped. In the first one, there were male red blood cells, right?
I do think so. I was just thinking the same thing. I think they were like half and half. And this one, I only saw male red blood cells and female white blood cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was really weird because like I understood the white blood cells being gendered because, and as I mentioned in the season there's actually a little drumstick that is the extra X chromosome that women have in their white blood cell. It sticks out. And so men don't have that. So it does make sense that like why it would be uniform that like all the white blood cells in this body, since we find out later, beyond a doubt, it's definitely a male body. All the white blood cells would be female. Yeah, I didn't understand why the red blood cells were all male. But even so, I thought she was great. It was interesting that she had a sword instead of just a knife, the way that the guys had in the other body. And she worked more as a team. Like her and her two buddies were pretty consistently together, and that was kind of cool to see. Yeah, but other than that, she didn't contribute as much as I thought she was going to, as far as like character arcs and stuff go. She didn't seem to change a lot because her values were good from the start. Didn't really have a lot that she needed to learn. She just needed to have the ability to carry it out and to have somebody else that would be helping to do that from another perspective or another angle. So yeah, I liked her.
Did we ever see original white blood cell in the other series? Phagocytosis, someone try to eat someone?
No, I think that was entirely left to the
The macrophages?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
Yep, left to the macrophages.
So yeah, that was. I agree with everything I said. There's not really a whole lot of character there, I don't think, but it was cool to see the white blood cells devouring, people, because that is part of what their job is. Just like the macrophages, they eat bacteria. So yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
What it's funny because when this, he first gets on the job, they're like, hey, we're shorthanded. The first thing in my mind is like, oh, his red blood count is low. Oh, that's bad.
Yep.
Yeah. So this older senpai guy who was helping him is like, all right, we're gonna keep working. I'm gonna run through the carbon monoxide, and you go the other way. And he's like, but that'll kill you. He's like, yep. And he just runs off and like starts mutating as he runs.
And laughing.
Yep.
Yes.
And so White gets red out of there. And then they go to the lungs to investigate what's going on. And the lungs are like, yeah, he started smoking after 10 years. It's been 10 years since the last time this happened, but he's picked up smoking again. And so this will keep happening. They're like, this isn't just a one-off. We're gonna keep seeing this. It never comes back up, but yeah, so now they just always have the threat of carbon monoxide just blasting them and turning them into zombies. Then in the next episode, we see Red talking to his friend Blondie, and we do need to talk about Blondie. And I named him Blondie. He's just a red blood cell with blonde hair who never opens his eyes, hardly ever. Like I said, no one has names, so I call him Blondie. What do you guys think of this character?
Definitely a tropey sidekick character to the Paragon of Good, but I liked the dichotomy between the two. I liked the contrast of you've got a guy that's trying to live up to being a red blood cell, and a guy who's so much into work that he's breaking records, but then Blondie, he's having a tough time even keeping up with normal quotas, and the attitude changes between the two, and it was a good contrast. But I also liked him as later on, he's willing to give up and because of his friend's speech, he's like, "You're forcing me to live." That was pretty heartstring pulling. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I agree. He brought a much needed contrast to the main character because it would have been annoying just to see this character constantly striving. It was kind of cool to see him next to a character who was saying, "Yeah, it is futile. So why am I working this hard? I'm going to go find ways to slack off where nobody's going to be mad at me." But at the same time,
Pull the map.
yeah, exactly. At the same time, Blondie had a good heart too. Like he wasn't a jerk. We saw red blood cells in this that were jerks. They were the bullies, right? And he could have gone down that route, the anime route. The anime, leaves that opportunity there and explores it, but he didn't. And it was, yeah, he was a really cool character, and yeah, that, he will be missed there.
I really like Jason was saying about the dichotomy. I like that he had his very own approach to work, and then the answer for both of them lied somewhere in the middle. He needed to care more about his job, but also at the same time, Red needed to realize if you push yourself to the extreme every day, when you're needed the most, you might not be ready for it. And we see that like Blondie has a woman self friend that he goes and talks to, and he has a life, and he has more that he lives for besides just the job, where I don't think Red does, except for Blondie himself, and then that ends up biting him in the butt. And so I think that's important in the overall theme of more, there's a theme about health, and there's the theme about how you approach your work. With a Japanese culture slant thrown in, but it's still very much like, hey, you can't just live for your job because your job doesn't care about you. It's a job, to be fair. It is what it is. But also, you should have pride in the work you do, so that helps you get through your work. So it's finding that balance, and I like that they had the two characters to kind of present both sides and help each other get closer to that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when he visits the spleen.
Yeah.
They end up going to the mouth, and there's a mouth ulcer that ruptures, so everything's on fire, and they're still trying to like, hey, can you stamp this? Can you take the delivery?
Inflamed really means inflamed.
And then some bacteria gets in, and this is where we meet they're not rookie white blood cells, but they call white they're senpai, so they're younger than her. And there's one with like pink hair and one with purple hair.
Mm-hmm.
There's a blue and yeah. Anyway, they like to tease Red about always ogling white, which is next episode. I have a complaint, but it kind of can't. It starts from this episode. Anyway, we get to see them eat the bacteria. I had already kind of mentioned that, and then later the red blood cells are feeling exhausted, and they get the sprinklers turn on, and it is alcohol, and they're getting drunk. So this old man, red blood cells, like, all right, guys, first time, huh? All right, I know what to do. Let's all go to the liver, and the liver is portrayed like Vegas, neon lights. Yeah, neon red light district. Yep. And they go to kind of like a strip club or an escort club, where red blood cells are fed 2 different drinks to help them detoxify. One basically makes them drunk, and then they get all emotional, and black smoke toxins come out of them, and then they have to drink another liquid to bring them back down. It's ADH and ALDH, if you care. Look, if you're here for the scientific facts, this is not the podcast. Go watch the anime.
I did find that I liked the portrayal of this, but when they would whip out these glasses with the drinks on them, because they said these particular cells that are serving them produce these chemicals for them to do. I'm like, wait, where did you get that liquid? If we're gonna go down this road of you're being personified, I'm really concerned.
Yep, exactly.
No, the hepocytes, and I'm glad the way they were portrayed. I'm glad they were showed how those were being made.
I was actually thinking, like, when the black smoke and everything was coming off of them, there were a lot of times where it would have been really cool if these anthropomorphized cells kind of changed a little bit to facilitate the job that they were trying to do, right? So clearly the black smoke was then being processed by the hepatocyte, but we didn't really see that. It just had to be kind of implied by the state of her health at a later point in time. It would have been kind of cool if she like sprouted vents at it or something. I don't know.
Or
It
just
would have
start
maybe
sucking it
taken.
in.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I got to get this black smoke stuff, but you know,
Yeah.
personal preference, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of things in here that they clearly have to, for story reasons, kind of fudge over all the ways of it just work, because when you're personifying, it's not a one-to-one.
Mm-hmm.
So, Red doesn't take the second drink, and he gets really upset, and the old man, Red Blood Cell, takes him to the side, and he's like, "You're being rude. Look at the hepatocytes," and there's always like more than one cell, but then there's one that's like the character that represents them, and she's having a hard time, and she's like, she's being overworked too. You're not the only one being overworked. You're not the only one with an important job function that you're not getting the support you need to fully complete it. Quit being rude to everybody else. And so he goes and he apologizes and takes his second drink. And then the old man, Red Blood Cell, actually passes away from old age, because, red blood cells don't live very long. And they take him over in the same place to the Kupfer cell, who eats him.
See, this was another opportunity where like she could have detached her jaw or something and taken a bigger bite.
Well, no, I actually liked it because they closed the curtain, but it's still implied that she's nibbling on him.
Nibbling away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's breaking down the red blood cell to get the nutrients so they can go back to the body. And then the next day they're hungover, and then more alcohol comes in, which is Hair the dog that bit you, is what the narrator says. When you're hungover, why not just get drunk again? That'll make you feel better.
I love how he's like, there's no evidence that this actually takes away the symptoms. It just makes you drunk again. People do it anyway.
Yeah.
I do love the portrayal of the red blood cells have zero say on whether they're going to get showered with alcohol or not.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just going to happen.
Yep.
All right. We're at episode 3. We're going to do
Oh,
our
boy.
best here.
And episode 4.
Yeah.
We're going to fly straight through it.
An announcement is sent out across the body to prepare everyone for upcoming arousal. And all the red blood cells are called to action. Not all of them, obviously, but red blood cells, we're going to need you to do your job. And so cells at work, Code Black does explain to us how red blood cells help with a male's arousal and their function there. And we see that carried out as they try to perform their duties of pushing walls open, inflating.
I love the especially big red blood cell who's he's in there. None of them can get the walls of the
it also makes no
Corona
sense.
cavernosa,
because if you have like giant cells, I'm pretty sure that's a disease. Like, you don't want to have abnormal cells.
Yeah, he's like this giant cell, puts his shoulder in it to open everything up. Yeah.
But they actually fail because of stress, and then they're talking about the chemical levels and how it all works. Again, if you want that information, go to the anime itself. But
it's just ED.
Yeah, they suffer. The body is suffering from ED.
Mm-hmm.
But what's important in this story is, while all the red blood cells are retreating, and Red, who had we see a flashback of him visiting the testes and seeing the cells create sperm, which are the creepiest looking things ever.
They are so weird.
They're like swans, but with human faces and tiny necks, and
with like child voices.
Yeah, floating in pools.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, Tanya was sitting next to me. She's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm loving all of the designs except the sperm. This is terrifying. This is horrible.
This is nightmare fuel."
Yes,
but,
exactly.
but Red, who's like, the purpose of a human body is to create offspring. I'm never giving up.
Uh-huh.
Decides to go back, and Blondie, he convinces Blondie to help him, and so Blondie and him start pushing again. But something that happens a lot through through Code
Yes.
Black, robots start helping, and robots are always medicine or outside interference from medical doctors or whatever, and so it changes the chemical levels back the way they're supposed to. They took Viagra, and so the red blood cells are able to do their job, and everything, mission completion happens. We're gonna leave it at that, and then go ahead.
So I think my favorite part of this episode is, we've got Red, who he's going to do his job for the importance of this particular activity. And then he gets the bad news of,
Yes.
well, not every time is for reproduction.
And
And
he's
just the
so
futility
sad.
of it just kind of rolls over him.
Yeah. But what about the sperm? Well,
Yeah. I actually have a little bit of an issue with it from the character's point of view. That makes complete sense, right? Like I just put
Yeah.
everything into carrying out my life,
Yeah.
this life function.
Exactly.
But if there are younger people who are watching this, I don't want anyone watching this and feeling bad about anything in that general area. Like if I didn't try to make a baby, letting my body go through these stages is wrong. No, that's not a good message for young people. Please don't. But again, from red blood cells point of view, I get it. I do 100% get it.
Completely.
Also, one issue I had is him like, I don't understand how any of this is working, and I have people having to explain it to him. When in the last episode, when he was teased about liking white blood cell, he covered his line, which means he also
does this.
Yeah, he's also having his own reactions, and so he should also understand that this is not just for baby making. It's kind of weird that you don't get that, but I get that was probably just a joke. That's probably my biggest beef with this anime. When I watch this episode, I'm like, be careful with that message, but it's fine. It's fine.
For me, the only thing was just that how personification can sometimes mix you up, where it's like, okay, you made this human, but that adds a whole level of weirdness to this that wouldn't have been there if they weren't human.
Yep. Yes.
Yep.
All right. We did it, guys. We got through episode 3. Now we get to do it on episode 4. Talk about STDs.
Woo!
Because white blood cell runs in and she's like, everyone run. We have gonorrhea.
So was this a prostitute then? Because I was trying to figure out what the person whose body this is, he's going through different things. He clearly started smoking after 10 years, started drinking. He's got severe stress and fatigue. Did he also do that? Is that what it sounds like?
I mean, that's not necessarily the only way to get an STD. You can get it from anybody who has it. So there's no way
necessarily involve transaction.
Right.
That's true.
If our theory of this is an office worker, I could see it being like just another stressed out coworker who maybe uses that recreational time to relieve her stress. Often, who knows?
I love the way you put that. It's so elegant.
I would have liked to have seen something said like, "Hey, but also stress levels did go down." Same with the alcohol. Like, every once in a while, if we have alcohol, that actually makes the stress levels go down, and that will help things in the long run. And the liver can handle this on occasion. Obviously, this is a body who's doing things to excess and not in moderation, and that's fine. But I would have liked to have seen a word or two about in moderation. Some of these things are not the worst. Even the caffeine, they're kind of like, it does actually give us energy and does help with the blood flow. But there are long-term effects, and so
I think it was implied. At least that's what I got that message. That the implication of we can normally handle this. It's just that he's doing it so much that he's burning us out.
The one line I remember is when they were talking about the fat cells. He's like, we get he's doing these things because of stress to help deal with the stress, but the things he's doing to deal with the stress are causing problems. But again, because they
Don't
mentioned
talk
stress,
about me like that.
They mention stress so often. I would have liked to have seen them mention like, "Hey, stress levels are down, and that does help in these areas." But now we have gonorrhea, and so that doesn't really balance itself out.
Yeah, we're at a net deficit here. There was, I know, at the beginning of episode 3, the commander guy in, I don't know if it's autonomic or just brain in general,
I call him
but
brain, but yeah.
brain, yeah. He did say it's an emergency, and we're gonna do this. We have to do this. And then the very next thing that happened was episode 3 and the erection, right? So with this guy, I kind of took that as he was going for a stress relief, like you were describing. But they never come back to that. They never say, "Hey, it was a success. We did get those stress levels come down." That would have been cool if they'd followed up.
Yep. All right, so the gonorrhea are here. The good gonocoki.
So lonely.
They're these giant armored things with like 4 tentacles coming off of them, and they're
With
marching
faces.
through and just. And the white blood cells are battling them and getting their butts kicked. We just keep seeing white blood cells being grabbed and eaten. It's not going well for them. They have to end up withdrawing. And they're marching towards the testes to take out the nursery. And so all white blood cells in the whole body are called to battle. I don't know if that ever actually happens, where obviously white blood cell count would go up in certain areas for the infection, but I don't know if like, hey, every cell come to one spot.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
I do think, like, just in general, how few people there are, few cells there are, it's such a like zoomed in scope.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
And so when we see the white blood cells, let's be clear about that, marching to battle, the red blood cells are harassing them as Blondie yells at them like, "You need to do your jobs. We're trying to deliver oxygen through here, and there's gonorrhea running amok, and this is all your fault. Why aren't you doing your job? I'm doing my job. I'm delivering." And we see this happen a lot where their own stress about their job, and they just lash out at someone who's only doing their own job but also not getting the same amount of support. And so it's not white blood cells' fault that the gonorrhea is marching and they can't stop them. It's just out of their control. But everybody is venting at each other all the time because of the situation. We see that recur multiple times. And then in a nice bit of karma, Red and Blondie are giving deliveries down low because they're the rookies. And, why should us older guys have to risk ourselves? So we meet the white blood cell captain, who has 2 swords and 1 eye. And she complains about like the higher ups don't understand what it's like on the front line, and she stops her troops and she's like, "Guys, we're not gonna win this, but we're gonna do it anyway because that's our job." And like one hurt white blood cell is like, "I'm coming." She's like, "No, we're not gonna win, so don't sacrifice yourself because someone has to be left when this battle's over, and it won't be those who are fighting. So if you want to stay behind, that's a good idea." Yeah. So they go and they have this big battle, and Red comes across dead bodies of white blood cells, and there's pus coming from them, and we see that the pus is going to leak out of genitals, and that explains, hey, that's why that symptom happens.
Yep.
You okay there,
Wow.
Jason? Hang in there, man. Anyway, the white blood cells lose in battle, and Red shows up, and the gonorrhea's like, "You guys are white blood cells are gross. You turn into pus. You're the worst." And red blood cells like, "No, pus is beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's not
they're-
dirty at all."
shows that they did their jobs, and that's a great thing." And then a sky beam blasts them. This is satellite. Yeah, so this is a obviously medical intervention, and it strips them of their armor, their cell wall that was protecting them against the white blood cells, and the white blood cells are able to fight. And actually, White herself gets Red and Blondie through, and then we cut to a funeral service for all the dead white blood cells that were being sent down the urethra, including the captain who lost her lives.
Yeah.
Jason,
I'm
you can't snicker every time I say Urethra. Come on.
I might almost be 40, but I'm a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, okay.
You're not alone. Um, so one of the things that started bugging me here, and it's very, very minor, but I remember in season 1 when we did have encounters with antibiotics, the cells were afraid of them because antibiotics are frequently indiscriminate.
Right.
They yeah, they'll destroy anything. And they really held true to that in the first one. And I know that this time there were situations where they explained, this antibiotic specifically does this thing, which targets this bacteria or this fungus or the cell wall of this or that. But I did kind of miss that not once through this entire season, with as many times as we encountered antibiotics, did we have that same situation where it's like, this Terminator is going to kill everything. And it is terrifying and it's frightening, because I think that would have been really cool. It's an element that I really enjoyed in the first one and I missed here.
I didn't think we'd get a kaiju battle, but anyways.
Oh my
get more into that later.
Yes.
This episode ends with us seeing Helper T Cell, and he is furious at the white blood cells, and he's like, the killer T's are going to get the job done. And he's clearly losing his rocker. And then we get to hear his story. He's having the killer T's attack lots of bad cells. That he's working them as harder than everyone else is working. He's overworking them, obviously. And then we cut back to Red. He's delivering more oxygen, which is what he's always doing. And he goes to the hair cells this time. So we meet the hair matrix cells, and he delivers oxygen to them. And we even get to see little old man Pigment coloring
awesome.
The gray out of the hairs. Keep working, old man Pigment, because you're missing some on the chin. You could work a little harder.
Exactly.
And Red also sees White exercising with one-handed push-ups because she has a broken arm. And he's like, shouldn't you be resting? She's like, this is resting. And she thanks him for what he said about white blood cells. And then Killer T, the main Killer T, who's the personification of them, comes by and he's all like, yeah, white blood cells suck, can't do their job. And then he walks away.
Now, I did love the fact that the Killer T cells had the same outfit designs as the white blood cells. Like, they had the same bare chested down to the belly button kind of thing. So that that was fair and equal treatment.
Yeah. So Red and Blondie are sent up to the crown again to deliver oxygen, but when they get there, everything's on fire. And they talk to the hair cells, and the hair cells are like, killer T's are attacking us. And they are, because the killer T's, this is actually an autoimmune disease. They think the hair cells, because they grow so fast, are cancer cells. And so they are attacking them, and they are causing spot baldness. So that the hairs are like launching out into the sky. And the killer T's are like smashing on the face of the cells. And Blondie starts to run away, and he runs into these like giant metal ball things that start chasing him, but they're actually robots. And actually, we see the dendritic cell. Dendritic, thank you. The dendritic cell run up to Helper T and be like, I'm pretty sure you're attacking the hair. And he's like, no, turbo boost the killer T's, give them extra power.
They're multiplying like bacteria.
Yeah, and then these balls end up being more robots. It's steroids that are taken to suppress the killer T's reactions and stop them from causing damage. And I thought they were gonna kill them.
I did too.
And I was kind of bummed because I was like, oh, this is gonna be a really cool, dramatic. And Helper T lost his mind trying to help, had to be put out of his misery, and he's just tied up. Yeah. So I guess he still has his job. But we do get this beautiful scene of Red telling regular Killer T, like, you don't have to work anymore. You can stop working. And he just starts crying, like, I don't have to work. Yeah.
Big softy.
Watching the hairs disconnect out of like their mainframe area was like cool looking, and then also like, oh no, actual hair loss.
Yeah. Yep.
I had no emotional reaction to it.
Well, you have a nice hairline still. You jerk.
All right. Then we see a spiky stone substance break through the wall from the urethra. Good job, Jason. Proud of you. You got through that one.
And lots of red blood cells get sucked
Yeah,
through the
blood
hole in the
cells
wall.
getting sucked in. So we see Red. He's walking through this slimy vessel with Blondie, and they end up getting all dirty. So they have to go to the kidneys, to the glomeruli. Doesn't matter. They're the cells in the kidneys, and their job is to wash red blood cells. So they go and get a bath. So many times in this, they're like halfway through a delivery, and they just like stop and like, let's go do something else. Let's go to liver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, maybe take the oxygen first, and then okay, no, it's fine. I get it. It's just personification.
Just leave it there.
Well, what cracks me up is like just the idea that we're supposed to be personifying these red blood cells that integrally keep the oxygen on them at all times, but they still sometimes just leave their oxygen behind. It should technically go with them to the liver.
I just want to see in real life like two red blood cells flowing through and then stopping and being like, hey, let's go the other way. There's a liver down here. Let's go hang out. Anyway, yeah. So they're getting washed, and the bathers, these I'm not gonna say it again. I'm gonna call them glums. The glums are no talking is allowed, and that's because when the kidneys have problems, they tend to not be detected. They don't show signs and symptoms, so they're called the silent kidneys. So it's personified as an old lady yelling at these young ladies, don't say a freaking word. And so like Red starts talking to his, and she's like, hey, be careful around the urethra. Things have been weird lately. And then she gets yelled at, like, no talking. We have to be silent. We're the silent kidneys. And he
I love the personification of the bath time is just them standing there with the like a hose attachment spraying them down.
Yeah. And it's all just water falling off into the urethra.
Right.
So they go back to their delivery, and then the what's a kidney stone breaks through again, and it sucks in a bunch of red blood cells. Red and Blondie end up running from it, and so many red blood cells fall into the urine that it actually turns red. So pee and blood. Again, kidney stones, and it's mentioned.
It's a grotesque scene, by the way. Just
It
you've
is.
got all these like face down red blood cells.
Yeah.
Is it weird that I was able to identify more of the stuff from Code Black than the regular show? Like, well, on the regular show, I was like, I have no idea what any of these things are, and then this one, I'm like, oh, kidney stone, yep.
Yeah. I did the same thing. Yeah, I had to look up a lot of the stuff from the first one, and this one was like, yep, I've been there, done that. Ow.
I didn't say I had it. I just said I recognized it. You know, and at the end, there's someone I know that I was like, I think I know someone with almost all these. All right. So yeah, kidney stone, and Red tries like, I'm gonna push it back in, and I'm like, I don't think red blood cells do that. I don't think that's a thing. But this giant snake laser robot, it's a catheter, comes in and blasts the kidney stone into tiny pieces so it'll flow out. However, bacteria then starts crawling up the tube. I don't know what that means. They didn't disinfect the tube.
That's
or
what
it's
I was
just,
thinking.
Just if you have a tube in there, it's just a new access point for bacteria. I think that's what it is, but I really hope it's not dirty.
It didn't happen with the stint.
The narrator did mention that this is a very rare thing to have happen during this procedure.
So, yeah, bacteria coming in, the white blood cells who are already depleted from the gonorrhea battle, they rush in and start fighting. Red runs back up to the kidneys to warn them that, hey, they're coming. The bacteria are coming. And the bacteria, one gets up there, and Granny, who's been like, everyone be quiet, just get back to work and be quiet. And one of the girls had stood up to her. That girl gets attacked by the bacteria, and Granny jumps in and takes the blow. And with her dragging breath, is like, get back to work.
I love that. I love that. I was laughing so hard when she said that.
I need you to remember one last thing before I die. Get back to work.
Exactly.
The reason the narrator points out is these glomeruli do not regenerate. They do not proliferate. We are given a limited number, and when you run out, you're done. And so she's like, yeah, we can't ever stop, and we can't ever complain. We have to be working because they're limited. Antibiotic robots show up and
Doesn't that mean they'd all be the same age?
Yes.
There wouldn't be a Granny.
No, it's actually, there's always one that's older than all the others.
That's how that works.
That's scientific fact. There's just one old cell to keep all the other cells in line.
That's right. The precursor.
All right. Red goes back to work after saying something really cool to it's okay to cry this one time. And then they go back to work, and then we see red blood cells getting sprayed with something from the sprinklers again, but this time it's not alcohol. And actually, the two characters being sprayed, I call them Mario and Luigi, because one's kind of bigger and he's got a red mustache and beard and hair, and the other one's skinny and lanky and has green hair, so I call them Mario and Luigi. Apparently, you can have evil red blood cells that are just jerks.
Yeah,
bullies. And then the next episode focuses on Blondie, who, he's not quite meeting his quotas, and he's tired, and he sees Red, who's kicking butt and doing his best. And then Blondie delivers some oxygen to a cell, and then when he leaves, the oxygen explodes as ROS, and it ages the cell into an old man. It had nothing to do with him. It was due to stress, I think. It just caused a chemical reaction. For this, it's just a random thing that happened. But other cells are like yelling at him, like, "Hey, you need to be responsible and make sure that this isn't happening."
He must have handled it poorly.
And Red defends him. And then they go to red blood cell rookie awards, and Red
they had these.
Yeah, Red wins the award for hey, the first red blood cell to push a kidney stone back. That's never happened before. Yeah. And also making all your deliveries and all that stuff. So he wins the award, and everyone's like, "Oh, Blondie, that's your best friend. You must be so just like him." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not, but all right, thank you." And then those bullies, Mario and Luigi, are like, "Hey, kid, you wanna get some boost? You wanna get some help, get a little stronger?" And he's like, "No, thank you. I'm good." And then they go back to the hair, which is still gone, and they go to the sebaceous gland. I thought watching this was a pimple. It's
me too.
It's not technically, but it is where pimples come from. I actually had to look this one up. It's a guy who has like this sack on his back that is like full and expanding, and he's like, "I'm about to retire. Today's my retirement." And it's like he's clearly about to pop. And they had dodged ROS getting up there, and he's like, "Hey, you guys don't want to be here for when this happens." So they put in the oxygen and leave after having some tea with him, and then he burst. And sebaceous glands, they put oil on your skin from the hair follicles, and when they get clogged, that does cause pimples. I don't think he was a pimple, though. I think he was just doing regular work.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, though, because I don't know if they're supposed to die when they do their job. I don't know if that's a thing.
I don't think so. This was one of those situations where they stepped away from the personification a little bit and added a little bit of transformative anthropomorphization.
Right,
yeah, and I thought that was really cool. More of that, please.
And then uh, because of the ROS and the explosion, a foul
This is
order.
where old man smell comes from. It
Body-
actually is a thing. I didn't know this. That was so cool
Yeah,
to find
I
out.
didn't either.
And so yeah, it's a deeper. It's not just regular body, because regular body odor is that same gland, and the
Mhm.
bacteria eats it, and then the bacteria's waste is your body odor, and you can wash it off. This
Mhm.
is a chemical reaction with what's already going on inside you, and yeah, it creates an unhealthy smell. So the whole hair now stinks, and that's fun. Um, and Blondie is blaming himself for all of this, because this keeps happening. These explosions keep happening. He actually gets in a fight with Red, um, and so he does go to Mario and Luigi, and he takes up their offer, and so they go and they get a hit, and it's caffeine, and when caffeine enters the system,
Archie.
and when they get it, the blood starts flowing faster, things dilate, they have a ton of energy, and we see what's interesting is they keep talking about the caffeine like it's a choice, whereas the alcohol was not, but it would be the same. Like you, and
No,
they show Red getting hit with it, but later he's like, "You didn't go get another caffeine hit, did you?"
they made specifically to make to say that it's strongest in the small intestines. So if a red blood cell goes to the small intestines, they're going to get hit really, really strong and hard with it. While everywhere else in the body, it's a normal dose.
Okay, that makes more sense then.
And that's why I was upset at him. He's like, "You didn't go back to the small intestines, did you?"
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
I
basically,
did.
Blondie's basically lapping Red now. He's doing almost double the work, and Red's like, "Yeah, it's great to have the energy, but I always feel kind of lethargic and weak-minded afterwards." Yeah, and he's like, "I'm just kind of worried about the long-term effects." And Blondie's like, "Well, I love it. Shut up." And then because of all the dilation from the caffeine, a nosebleed happens, and so they're getting sucked out. And Red manages to get pulled to safety, and he's reaching for Blondie, and Blondie's like, "But I'm too tired. I need caffeine. I can't pull myself to safety. I'm just gonna die." And
Yep.
Red's like, "No, you're my best friend. I don't want you to die. You helped me. You gave me inspiration every day. You get over here and you live." And Blondie's like, "You're making me want to live. Dang it. All right, I will." And they
I
save
love
him.
that he says just a little longer, and I'm like, oh, foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I actually thought he was going to die here, and then when they didn't, I'm like, "Oh, maybe they're not going to be as mature as I thought they were going to be." And then,
Yeah. It's just not the right death.
Blondie stops
Spoiler
going to
alert.
go get high with Mario and Luigi after this. He stops doing drugs, guys. I was wondering if we were
Yeah.
going to get hard drugs showing up.
I was too.
Right.
When they were saying that a foreign substance entered the nose at one point, I was like, is that cocaine?
Yeah. I'm wondering if in the next season they might go there.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
very possible.
it would fit in the theme, and it would be informative to know, because like all this stuff is at least on the legal and bad for you, but again can be moderated and not as bad as it is, with maybe the exception of the smoking. But all right, and the gonorrhea, I guess.
Still legal.
Can't moderate gonorrhea though. All right. Oh yeah. So this is when we find out White Blood Cell tells her friends, "I've noticed the body hasn't slept or hardly moved for 2 days." And this is where I was like, "All right, there's only two types of people I know that do that: video gamers and office workers that are in bad jobs." And I haven't seen any signs of video gamers. Plus, he had sex. No, I'm kidding. uh,
How dare you?
this is where I came up with my own idea that he was an office worker. Jeremy, I know you have the same theory. I don't know if
Yep.
you saw other clues.
No, for me it was actually, even back when he got gonorrhea, to me it just seemed like it was fitting the role of maybe somebody who had a tragedy and a loss of life in their family, or maybe went through a divorce, or some other kind of, or even just lost a job and had to get a new job and couldn't cope with the stress. seemed like a cascade of those. But I definitely thought it was a worker as well.
All right, so the white blood cells actually come across a mass of red blood cell bodies in the ground, and then we come back.
Grotesque looking.
We come back to Red, and he's delivering to that old rude lady again. She's like, "I heard you won an award." He's like, "Ah, I did." And she's like, "Well, don't get high and mighty about it."
I will not recognize you.
Bring me more oxygen.
Yep.
And then Red and Blondie are delivering together. They get hit with some alcohol, so they go back to the liver, and now it's all desolate and empty. They go to the hepatic cell, and she is too tired, and the liver has become fatty for her to be able to help them. So they decide they'll come back later, and they just go back to their deliveries because of the excessive drinking. And so they go to deliver oxygen, and they have to go up the cath, and they run into Mario and Luigi, who mocks them. And then while they keep going, the floor collapses, and there's this huge pile of bodies in there. And then Mario comes up behind them and almost tries to push them in, and they're hanging there, and he's like messing with them, and white blood cell and has to save them. And they keep going, and they're mentioning that because the body hasn't stood up in 2 days, the leg muscles aren't working, and the leg muscles are called a second heart because they build up pressure to help the blood move. It's why if you wear an Apple Watch, like I do, it yells at you if you don't stand up every hour. You need to move, and it is also again, I'm myself an office worker and a video gamer. I spend a lot of time sitting. This is actually something I think about a lot because sitting is very bad for you for this very situation that we see. So while they're going, eventually the muscles do start working, and they're like, "Oh, that's great! Now we're gonna have they showed as like wind starts blowing, so it gives them the helps them keep pushing." But those big massive bodies is a blood clot, and now it gets dislodged and starts Indiana Jonesing down the hallways, and it hits Mario and Luigi.
And collects them.
The best part was the little platelet being like, "We're gonna stop it." Oh no, we're not. Nope, move it aside.
Yep.
And it goes all the way to the lungs. It's a pulmonary embolism. It blocks the passage to the lungs, so now they can't get oxygen to the lungs. Man, and they have this scene where like Mario is like half dead, and inside the clot now, and he's like, "Ha ha ha! The life sucked. I'm so glad we're all gonna die now." I was like, "Oh, that's dark, man. You could just die now, though."
Yep. That's morbid.
But Red comes up with the idea of carrying oxygen through the bronchial arteries, which are small and narrow, and then eventually the clot does dissolve. And when they get inside the lungs, the workers have been saved because of Red's plan. They had enough oxygen to survive until the clot had passed away.
Well, and during this time, what is it? They see the ceiling of their world start to crack and crumble, and then like electricity starts hitting the. No, that's not this part.
It's way later.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought that was this part.
Now
this is the lung one. That one's the heart.
You're thinking
okay.
In the heart. Yep.
Yep.
Also, these can go into your brain, which is what scares me the most.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, get a stroke. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So yeah, again, that's something I've thought about many times in my own life. Definitely because my own lifestyle choices put me at risk for them. So this was a fun episode for me.
I feel like walking.
Yeah, I've been walking a little bit more often. Let's stretch these legs a little bit. All right. At the end of this episode, White Blood Cell notices she's basically alone. She's looking around the city, and there's no white blood cells anywhere. And I was actually like, man, what makes white blood cells disappear? And it's not a specific thing. It's just they've been fighting so often, the bone marrow hasn't been able to produce more, and they're just kind of out. They've just run out.
I instantly thought, oh no, he's got HIV.
Yeah, me too. Yep.
That's what I thought, but that didn't end up.
Yeah, I was thinking, are we going to see like a corrupted white blood cell that's doing like the cancer cell thing?
That cancer cell episode was really good.
Yeah, it was.
All So Red speaks with a character who I actually call Senpai. We've mentioned there's a couple bit older red blood cells, but there's one kind of normal looking, but he's recurring and he doesn't die like all the rest.
Yeah.
And he definitely takes Red and Blondie under his wings and kind of becomes their boss. And so I call him Senpai. And they talk and they actually go back down to the genitals where production has run low. And they're like, there hasn't been any work down here. Episode 3 hasn't happened again for a while. He's like, yeah, we used to do it every morning.
Yeah, we're not even doing morning maintenance anymore.
Yeah, we used to do morning maintenance, and we stopped doing that.
And the narrator goes morning wood. I was like, I thought you were supposed to be clinical. What is
Yeah.
going on?
Yeah.
So I watched these with my teenage daughter, super fun, and I joked like, oh, Morning Wood, and then the show's like Morning Wood. Okay, I guess that's the official name.
Yeah.
But they see these little parasitic worm things with like creepy faces running around. And it's ringworm, which has different names based on location, which we learned from this episode. But right now it's in the genitals. So they're like, yeah, there's not enough. They're mostly harmless, but they are definitely infecting the body. And so they leave. And Red's like, what is happening to this body? Like everywhere I go, it just gets worse and worse. And then White Blood Cell comes to them and she's like, hey, have you guys seen any white blood cells? And they're like, you? No, we have not. And they visit the lungs and they meet new rookie red blood cells. That's right. We meet Cheeks in this episode. So there's a couple of rookies. There's one who I call Bright Eyes because he has weirdly drawn eyes. And then there's one with like rosy cheeks who I call Cheeks. Cheeks is the more important one because he talks the most. But Red is asked to be their mentor as the top rookie from the last class. So he becomes their mentor. And he basically takes them around the body. And he's like, oh yeah, it must be heavy for your first day. I'll carry extra for you, and he's basically doing half their work for them, trying to be better than his jerk senpais in the beginning. And then one of them forgets they had a delivery receipt, and it's all the way down in the foot. So he decides to go, and Blondie's like, "Hey man, I'll go with you. You're working so hard, and I can tell you're tired. I'm gonna go with you." They go down there, and they're attacked by the ringworm. And White shows up, and then her two friends show up, but that's it. No other white blood cells show up. They fight the ringworm, and Medicine does show up and help them, but then Brain has to be like, send them back into battle. Like they have to go keep fighting more ringworm. They have to find more. There's more ringworm. They have to keep fighting. I'm glad Medicine was able to help this time, but they can't stop. Like there's hardly any left. He's like, that doesn't change what they have to do. Like that they have to do their function. And so Red, seeing this, he starts kind of freaking out, and he's like, I have to. He becomes very similar to the Killer T's in the Attacking the Hair Cells, where he becomes obsessive and he's freaking out, and he literally grabs the rookies and like, you have to deliver more. We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Which I had mentioned when we talked about the character. This is where I was like, man, I really see parallels. If this is an office worker who's going through stress because of his job, and that's what's causing all these bad decisions for his health, and then we see Red, who's becoming obsessive about his job, and the stress is clearly having an effect on him. I like that parallel. If that's real, if not, it's fine. It's still cool storyline, but it feels thematically parallel and well made to me.
Mm-hmm.
Blondie takes him aside and he's like, I'm going to show you how to slack off because you saved me and I'm going to save you because this is not right. It's like you need to have energy for the times it really matters. So you do need to have to know how to take a break. And he teaches them how to like, hey, here's a small capillary that no one ever comes in. Let's just sit. Let's just sit on the wall.
Or if you open a map and just stand still, no one will bug you.
Which made me think of Red Blood Cell from the original.
Yes.
So that does help Red. It snaps him out of his funk. But then they're called for an emergency delivery to the stomach. And when they go there, there is a raging ulcer that has appeared. And so stomach acid is destroying the walls of the stomach and leaking everywhere. And they need, and Chief Stomach, who makes his appearance again, is like, we need oxygen both to repair it and to give to the workers who are repairing it. So you red blood cells, he's like, I'm going to work you to death, but this is important. Like, everything goes down if we don't fix this. So let's go. And they're like, oh man, was it all the bad food that was causing the ulcer? He's like, well, that didn't help, but it was him. He just keeps saying it was him that caused the ulcer. So they do their job, and we keep seeing like the acid break in and like melt 3 red blood cells right in front of Red. And Blondie ends up running away for a while, but he comes back and he decides to help. And then we see what's actually causing the ulcer, and it's H. pylori, which is
H. pylori.
H. pylori, which is a bacterium which specifically causes ulcers, and it has a special chemical of its own that keeps the acid from hurting it. And then we also see, so we do see medicine get taken, which turns into his giant robot versus kaiju battle in the stomach acid. But while this is happening, Red and Blondie are like, we're going to do our deliveries. Or Red is, and Blondie's like, all right, if that's what we're doing. And so they're running from the acid, and Red gets hit with the acid in the leg. And he's like, but no, I can still go. I can keep going. And so they keep going, and then the ground falls beneath them. And because of Red's leg injury, he's not able to get there. And Blondie grabs him and pulls him up, but sacrifices himself and falls into the acid. And they don't skip over this scene. Like, Chief Stomach has to pull him away. The platelets start covering it up. He's like, no, he's still alive down there. I know it. And they're like, no. And the platelets are like, yeah, we're covering this up. And Red loses. Red has a mental breakdown here. White blood cell, who had helped fight the monster, sees him walk away without his glasses. He's worn glasses the whole time. And then we see him laying in his apartment, and they're calling him to work, and he's not going. He's just a broken cell.
Done. Yeah.
It's called Cells at Home now.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently H. pylori, if left unchecked, also can cause stomach cancer. So that's lovely.
Fun.
Oof. Apparently, it's also in like 50% of people, and in most people, it just doesn't show symptoms.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's highly contagious. So.
I'm glad we did this. I'll sleep well tonight. Even though if I have a kaiju living inside me, that's kind of cool. All right. So yeah, he clearly is blaming himself for his friend's death, and then we see white blood cell walking around, and we see garbage has been piling up. There's been dehydration. There's been lack of sleep, overstress, and we get to see the best boys in the world, fat cells. Just these little fat guys hanging out in the street corners, just looking cute as can be.
Breathing difficulty and sweating, but it makes them absolutely adorable.
Yeah, and a little wall-eyed too.
Yes.
Something about them resonated with me. I don't know what it was. Then your white blood cell is called to an emergency, and this emergency is this big crystal bacteria that has entered the body down in the toe, and all white blood cells and macrophages are called to battle it. And memory cell.
I like this personification. This is cool.
This was in Cells at Work. Was memory cell there? I think I remember.
I believe so. Yeah.
But yeah, memory cell, their job is, hey, we remember everything that we've fought before so that I can pull up data and we can know how to fight it best, and has no data on this enemy. And the White jumps on it and tries to eat it, and not only can she not bite it, she literally says the words, it has no taste, which I thought was interesting. Of course, if you've read the episode title, you already know what this is, but and so they actually like pull out assault rifles and bazookas, and they just start going to town on this thing.
See, I was sad
RPG.
here. Yeah, I was really sad here because I was expecting a resurfacing of like the natural killer cell, the lady with the knife that showed up in the previous one. I was looking for like the guy with
B
the
cell.
yes, who would spray with
gun.
his spray
Yep.
gun. I was looking for some of the other characters, and I thought this would have been a great time for them to show up and wreak havoc on the body. Of course, they showed up to wreak havoc on the body in the episode that they showed up in too, so maybe that would have just been too repetitive. But I was kind of a little bit annoyed with the white blood cell switching and using like ranged weapons. I don't know if that's a thing. I didn't take the time to actually research it, but I know that they actually have like little daggers that they use to penetrate.
Right.
I don't
But
think they have ranged weapons.
They don't have ranged weapons. I think it's more just what it's being personified here is the damage. It's about hey, damage is being done, and they realize it. So eventually, Brain goes, "Wait, what are these meters?" And they're like, "Oh, that's the uric acid," and like the way they've been really high. Oh my god, it's just crystallized uric acid floating through the body, and they call off the battle, and White is like, "We did all the damage. This thing didn't do anything. It just floated around, and we blew up the city trying to fight it." Which is it's gout.
Yeah, because he realized there was no entry point from the outside.
Mm-hmm. It must be super advanced. It's hiding its entry point.
So and this happens with the body all the time. You know, when it thinks there's problems, it attacks and it causes the damage that is the actual problem. You know, poison ivy, not actually harmful. The body fighting it is. And so same with gout. And my favorite part there is like, but this will keep happening and we'll keep doing this. They know they're not gonna, you know, they technically can't learn. It's not a bacterium. They can't put it in memory cells. So next time it shows up, they're gonna go through this all over again.
Yep.
That was my favorite part.
City. Yep.
And then while this has been happening, Red has gone strolling through town. He met the cell that was friends with Blondie, and he goes to the
spleen.
The spleen, but what do they call it? Red pulp.
The red pulp, white pulp.
But yeah, which is a judge who basically decides when a cell's life is over, and then will process them. And Red comes to the scale and he's like, "Yep, you're fine. Move on." And he doesn't move, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Please process me." He's like, I lost my best friend. I can't work. A cell who can't work can't live. Please just process me." And the judge is like, "This ain't a suicide chamber. You can work. Go work." So Red then goes to where the battle has taken place afterwards, and he's like, "There's only one way we're gonna get this body to listen." And he starts beating on concrete with a pipe, and he starts punching it till his knuckles are bloody. And White Blood Cell comes and hugs him and talks him out of it, and is like, "You know, I've given up hope too, but we got to keep working for this body, for everyone who sacrificed so much. And I know there's no such thing as all your cells leading a rebellion in your body. I get that's not a medical thing, but I was into this story development, man. Yeah. I wanted to see a cell rebellion so bad, and some cells started like getting into it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a thing? Is this a medical thing where your cells are just like, I hate you so much, we're fighting our way out?"
That would be amazing.
It would, but no, this was just character building, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But it would have been so cool.
Right.
All right. So he now feeling better, goes back to work. He apologizes to his senpai. He starts working with.
This was a really cool moment too, because she gives him back his glasses. Yes. And in a way that's them saying, "You're finally seeing things clearly again." That was cool.
It did like that.
Yeah.
My daughter was mad that he cried with his glasses on, though.
Why?
Because then tears will get on your glasses.
Oh, I see.
You know how hard it is to keep these things clean?
Right, seriously.
Or at least enough to see through?
So, no, I mean...
No, I've
never
had to deal with that.
All right.
Genetically.
You keep your hair, I'll keep my eyes.
All right, so He's working with Cheeks again. They go to the stomach. Cheeks tries to introduce himself to Chief's stomach. And he's like, no, I don't care. Get back to work. And so Red's like, the video is old. Just FYI. But then Chief Stomach is like, hey, thank you, AA246. That's close.
Whatever.
Yeah. He remembers Red's name. And he's like, I was hoping you'd come back. And that makes Red feel better. He's like, okay, I'm gonna do my best. And then when they're traveling through the coronary artery, they come across collapsed tunnel. The plaque has built up too much, and the platelets have made passage for them to get through, but things are unstable. And when they go a little bit farther, a full collapse happens in the coronary artery, and it's behind them. So they're able to get a couple canisters of oxygen to the heart, but blood flow has stopped to the heart, and there's no way to get oxygen to the heart. And I was very excited for this because in my profession as a medical coder, this was my specialty, was coronary medicine. And so I knew all this. I was like, oh, I know this. This is cool. But basically, because of this blockage, a heart attack has been triggered. And there's no way to get oxygen to the heart, so it stops beating. And then these old guys, and I think they're supposed to be the heart, basically call an emergency meeting. They're on the TV of every cell, and they're like, good try. Good work. We're done. This is the end. You don't have to work anymore ever again.
And you can blame it on us.
Yep. It's our fault. We're going to demise. And they die. And lights start shutting out, and we see White Blood Cell running as the lights are shutting out behind her. And then the final shot is Red frantically searching for oxygen anywhere, and he's running down the hall, and the lights shut off, and he's like, and he says, I just need to, and then the lights shut off. And you guys, I gotta tell you, I messed up in my notes here. I had messed up my episode count. I knew this was a 13 episode anime, and I thought this was episode 13. I was like, oh my goodness, that is a baller way to go out. That is so dark. We don't know his final words. It's just death is sudden. It doesn't let you complete your final thoughts. Take care of yourself. What a message. And then it's like, next episode. And I'm like, next episode? What? No, it's only 13 episodes. Oh, I counted episode 10 and as episode 11. My bad.
Lights go out.
Yeah. And that's where I got so mad. Like, you don't get to end the whole series and go da 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 da.
It's like taunting you.
I was so mad. But it was a clerical error on my part.
Honestly, I would have preferred that ending.
Yes.
Oh yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, like, for those few moments of the end credits, it was like, that is a strong message. That is pointed. That is telling me like, go get on a treadmill, something. Like, thank you.
Exactly.
But then there is another episode, which again still falls into an old career specialty of mine. So cool. The cells are trying to unblock the artery, and then suddenly the body starts shaking in rhythmic pulses, and they see the ribs starting to crack, and then the heart starts pulsing. So someone is performing CPR outside of the body, and is getting the heart to beat a little bit. So Red's like, okay, I'm gonna start getting ready for work. I'm gonna believe, and this. I'll call him Waluigi because he was skinny and he had purple hair. He looks like the senpai from the first episode, but that guy died, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So, but he's like, and you gotta understand, all the cells are mad, right? Because they've been working their butts off to keep everything alive, and then they're just told none of it mattered. Never mind. So everyone's furious, and this guy's like, let's just die. Let's just be done. This has been a terrible life. Who wants to keep going on? And Red's like, I don't work to live. I work because I enjoy working. Kind of. And then the heart does kind of start, but not really. It's in ventricular fibrillation, so it's not performing well enough. And then electricity fills the body, and so this would then be electric, the paddles, and they call it out. It's a defibrillator, they show one of the ones you can use like in a emergency kit, not instead of like the hospital one. But anyway, defibrillator, shock the heart, get the heart going again. And then we see a tube come through the coronary artery. It pumps up balloon, and it leaves behind what's called a stent. Again, this is my expertise. It's basically just a little wire cage that goes into your heart and pushes open the coronary artery wall again so that the blood flow through. Oxygen starts getting delivered. They get it to the heart. They get it to the stomach. They get it to the brain. Everyone gets their oxygen. The red blood cells are working as hard as they can, and the body comes online with only minimal brain damage. That kind of stopped me. It's like there was hardly any damage. Hardly any? It's still brain damage. What did we lose? Let's go into that.
I think it would have been cool if like one or two of the operators were like dead on the ground to show the brain damage.
Yeah, that would have.
And then life returns to normal after this, and actually even better than normal. The body is becoming healthier. The hallways are looking a lot cleaner. Red runs into white blood cell, and the city is looking nicer. He tells her, thank you. I've always been able to look up to you. She takes that as a love confession, and I don't see why not. I'm down for an episode of Pink Babies.
It'd make about as much sense as all the other personifications.
Right.
Yep.
And even she's like, you're a red cell and I'm a white cell. How could we ever? And I'm like, that's not the problem. Cells don't do that at all. Even if you were the same type. Anyway. But, and then the show ends. And then there's an epilogue after the credits where a needle comes in and sucks red and white and a bunch of other cells out, and they're for a blood transfusion, and they're put into a new body, which is even more unhealthy. So they're in an even worse body. Now, I don't know if you had a heart attack just a short while ago, if you're ready for giving blood transfusions. I don't know what the timing and rules on that are.
Well, the cleanliness of the body that's shown, it seems like a significant amount of time had passed.
But a red blood cell only lives for 120 days, I think.
Not very long.
But that's one of those things where I kept wondering about time. Like, okay, if they haven't seen each other for a few days, does that mean it's been like an hour for the body? Because of how much they have to go around. I don't know how the time works in cells at work, and maybe it's best we don't, because I don't think it would match up. Because, cells don't live incredibly long, especially red blood cells.
No.
All right.
I was wondering if it was some kind of like emergency transfusion that was required, and he was the only donor available. That was the only justification I could come up with, because they don't spend any time inside of a transfusion bag. Like, there's no. Maybe they would have just been asleep and so not noticed it.
Right.
But it seemed like they were just pulled right out and put right in.
So this is a little bit of a spoiler for Cells at Work, but I actually thought we were going to the Cells at Work world, because that show had a blood transfusion at the end where it saved them. And I do think those cells like woke up like, where are we? Like, where have we been? So maybe they do sleep in transit. But no, they just went to an unhealthier body, which seems so cruel. But
Your training is complete. Now it's time to face the real threat.
And Jason, you had some issue with how healthy the body got?
I didn't have an issue with how healthy it got. I think it was, it signified some time had passed, because obviously you're not going to get that healthy that quickly, right?
Right. That's true. All right. Any other thoughts on the ending? I just thought it was kind of a buzzkill.
Well, I mean, we could go, the message is, hey, you could be on death's door, but there's always redemption. That, if you work hard, you can, give yourselves or give your cells a nice, clean environment to live in.
And I know someone who had a heart attack from being unhealthy and then got much healthier afterwards. That is a pretty big wake up call. I think, obviously not automatic or anything. It still takes a lot of work, but it's definitely realistic to me in my experience.
Yeah.
I like both endings. I would have preferred the lights go out, show ends.
But then we would have missed the stent.
But I like both ideas, and I think the message of, hey, there's always, as long as you're living, there's time to get healthy. I thought that was a good message as well.
Yeah.
Well, like my grandpa on my dad's side had a heart transplant, so I would love to see what they do with something like that. That would be crazy.
Well, and one of the things when we mentioned the hard drugs, I was wondering if maybe that was the reason for jumping to another body is now you're in a really bad body that does like really bad stuff, not just, hey, I stopped taking care of myself after a while, but like self-destructive, full self-destructive behavior is where they got stuck in. But again, that's really sad. And also now we've lost like Stomach Chief and all these other characters. There's really Cheeks was there, Red is there, and White is there, and I don't think anyone else came with. So
certainly sets us up for another season.
Yeah, it does. And I know Cells at Work is having their second season, so it wouldn't surprise me if Code Black also got a second season. Cool. All right, let's go on to final reviews then. Jason, you picked it. You go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna give this a solid 4. It's not a perfect anime, but I learned a lot, and I was very entertained by that educational experience. And I thought they did a really good job with the characters. It felt like a lot more weight from the first one. I cared a lot more about what was happening to these cells. The white cells were drawn way better. But the subject, it had a really good mix of humor and seriousness and consequences for things that were happening. So yeah, I think this is definitely worth a watch.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
I want to give it 5. This is a topic that I absolutely love. I really enjoyed what they explored. I learned from it. Like you said, Jason, the characters had so much more development than what I saw in regular Cells at Work. The complaints that I do have are all very, very minor and kind of superficial, and I think that they'll probably come into play in season 2. I'm sure they'll start introducing new cell types that we probably haven't even heard of before, which would be really cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a 4 as well. I think I mentioned back at the beginning of that I kind of had dreaded going into this, and that was honestly more for the podcast. It was a little bit tough to talk at Cells at Work, and I think this episode has actually gone faster because there's not a lot of depth in the story. But I do enjoy watching the story. It's educational, and it's a fun way to make it educational. It's fun to personify it, and it kind of gives you another point of view into your own body and how amazing it is, how many hundreds of pieces are working all at the same time and for different things to keep one thing going. That's absolutely fascinating. So, and I like this better than the purely comedic version too. This was an improvement on regular Cells at Work. So a 4 for me. I don't know if I want to do it for the podcast ever again. There's hardly any characters. There's not a lot of meat on the bone. This one had more meat, but there's not a lot of meat on the bone. I don't know how well it works in a podcast format, but we got through it today, so it wasn't as bad as I had thought, and so 4 for me.
Well, whether we do it on the podcast again or not, this is definitely one I'm going to watch out for to watching, on my own time.
Yeah. I definitely see that, like, looking for something to stream, like, oh, there's Cells at Work. That's a good time waster, something I enjoy watching.
Yep.
Speaking of time wasters, our next anime. No, I'm kidding. But our next anime is Jeremy's pick, and he has picked Sleepy Princess in the Demon Castle, which is a nice pick because it's actually something that's been recommended to us before. So we hadn't had time to get to it, and now we do. You said it kind of was a take on an isekai. It's about a princess stuck in a castle full of demons, and then while she's waiting to be rescued, she just wants to sleep. And I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Want to sleep.
Yep. If I understand correctly, she's abducted. And the things she's always looking for to help her sleep are like whatever nasty things you might find from monsters, like the skins and feathers and stuff like that. I don't know what else, but like it's all of the crafting and collecting is how I see it, as like she's trying to use that stuff to sleep.
Well, like I said, this had also been recommended to us before, and so looking forward to watching that. And it's a 12-episode anime, so we'll be talking about that in the next 2 weeks. I am currently having technical problems on my side that I am working to get. So that is part of the reason we've been seeing delays or off on our schedule for delivery. Our watch and recording schedule has been absolutely fine. Our production and editing schedule is way out of whack right now, mostly because I don't have life and work balance.
Learn from cells at work.
Right. All right. So, but if you have thoughts on Cells at Work, Black or Code Black, please reach out to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or email the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast. That stuff is all working fine, and we be happy to hear from you when we do get these episodes out. Just currently, we watched them a few weeks ago from when they're actually releasing, but we will get caught up once some of the technical stuff has been worked out. So thank you guys very much. Let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
What the cell, man?
Oh, I did love when they said that. Sayonara.
Yeah.